People look at Patrick Mahomes and they see the off-target throws, they see his ability to run, they see all these things and they assume that's what makes him great. But the truth is, this stuff that we're talking about, Lewis, the stuff that isn't as easy to identify, maybe impossible in the draft process, his ability to lead, his ability to handle adversity, his ability to keep the real thing when the moments like this happen at the Super Bowl. Yeah. That's what makes him arguably as good as anybody we've ever seen.
There's no question about it. It's that subjective part of the equation, of the analysis, that quite honestly, look, front offices wrestle with every single year, trying to find out about the authentic individual. Who is he really? Who is he really when I'm not watching him? Who is he really when he's already achieved some measure of success? Will he continue to kind of work like he's a day oneer, like he just is walking in the building? And I'll tell you this, Brett Veach, the general manager of the Chiefs, who I've known for a long time, he is a great friend, a great friend. He went to bat for Patrick Mahomes. He told Andy Reid, not only is this guy special in terms of the things that he can do throwing the football, but this is the kind of guy we want in our organization to sit behind Alex Smith, learn how to become a professional in terms of what the week looks like, how to prepare and whatnot, so he can, from a self-managerial standpoint, get his process in place. But he has it all. He really believed that Patrick Mahomes had not only the on-the-field ability, but the right kind of wiring. And that's what it's always about with these guys. That's what always separates the special ones from the ones who are good, from the ones who are average, from the ones who are backups, from the ones who can only get on training camp rosters. A lot of times, it's here. It's here. If you want uncommon success, Jeff knows it requires uncommon sacrifice.
That's right.
Patrick is willing to make the uncommon sacrifices, even though he's going to make $500 million, which is still a bargain. Still a bargain.
I think that's the thing, right? Like, he's focused on, like, the question about Tom Brady, the way that lands in his brain is, well, that's silly. I haven't done it yet. Like, I still have to do a lot of stuff in order to be in that conversation. Like, I go back to, like, if you had told the teenage Mets fan that I was in the 1980s that Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden weren't going to be in the Hall of Fame, I would have thought you were being ridiculous, right? I mean, because they were doing things at a level that we'd never seen. They didn't do it. They didn't keep at it. And Patrick Mahomes seems to have an appreciation for, I've got to continue to do this. I've got to continue every single offseason to find ways to get better to make sure that I can do what Tom Brady did, who, by the way, his Super Bowl loss was to Tom Brady. So I think that's he has an up-close appreciation for what that all means and the work that goes into it.
And I think when you think about his upbringing, right, around a professional baseball player, his father, all those kinds of conversations that you have and that you see, is you do realize it's what have you done for me lately. Now think about this. Kelsey's going to be gone. Andy Reid might be gone, right, in a couple weeks. Like, there's a lot of change that happens in the NFL. What made Brady so special is that he left one place, went to another place, and goes on. So what's the continuity for Mahomes is smart enough to realize this ain't all going to stay the same. There's going to be change, but the ones that you can get are right now. Let me go seek my opportunity and take advantage of the opportunity.
And when you look at the way he reacted to Tyreek Hill being gone, right? Go back to that off season, that training camp. And I remember going to that training camp and talking to him and talking to Andy Reid about what would be different. And I remember Andy Reid telling me, I think this is going to be good for Patrick because he's going to have to elevate a little bit as a quarterback, as a leader, develop in ways that, you know, that if everything always stayed the same, he wouldn't have. So that seems to have come to fruition.
Can we talk about leadership just for 1 second, too? Let me just say this about his leadership. From this year, when the receivers were dropping and he overthrows MVS in the end zone and it goes through his hands. And his response that we all mocked, by the way, was, I should have taken a little bit off of that throw. And what does he do? Right here. Fast forward to the AFC Championship game. He takes a little bit off, and MVS makes the catch, and they solidify another trip to the Super Bowl. But what's crazy to me is he didn't blast his receivers like we were all doing. He took it on himself and said, hey, I'm going to do this. You don't think MVS wanted to catch that ball for that dude? 100 out of 100. The dude would, I mean, he would do anything in the world to make that catch because his guy didn't dress him down when he had the opportunity. That is leadership. That's what translates in a locker room, and I just appreciate it from a player perspective.
Lewis.
I'm just thinking about the first quarterback MVS played with.
Yeah. Lewis, go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the kind of building a little bit off of what Dan was alluding to. You know, Tom Brady had the benefit of, for the better part of 2 decades, having a system in place that didn't change. A lot of the things changed around him, but Bill was a constant throughout his entire career. If Patrick wants to play 11, 15 more years, whatever it is, Andy ain't going to be around all that time.
Right.
He's just not. And so the thing is, like for Patrick, the mountain that he has to climb may require even more than he's already given. If he wants to truly reach, you know, that kind of immortal status, that one of the titans of the game status that he's after, which is so damn cool to sit here and be a part of and watch this unfold, because he may have to start over. Yep. He may have to start over with, you know, a totally different team, just like Tom Brady did, but a structure around him that doesn't involve Andy Reid. And let me tell you something. Andy Reid is one of those types of guys who, when you're around him and you're standing next to him and you're talking to him about football, or you're on a headset, like I had the good fortune of being on the headset with him during games in Philadelphia, he is such a, when you talk about a guy who kind of elevates the performance of other people around him as a coach, his calmness, his demeanor, his being on top of everything that's happening, especially from an offensive perspective, you cannot really measure how beneficial that is to Patrick. You can't, and he's not going to have that later on in his career. So we may not have even seen the very best of what Patrick has to offer yet, but we will.
It's an important point because while it has become very fashionable, I think largely amongst people who have no idea what they're talking about, to diminish the impact that Bill Belichick had on Tom Brady. The reality is Brady made 90% of his Super Bowls and won 85% of them with one coach.
That's right.
With Bill Belichick as his coach. So I don't know how long Andy Reid is going to coach. The success of Brock Purdy, will it change the way teams evaluate quarterbacks leading into the draft?
No, it won't, because like I said, the draft is an exercise in risk management, and it's risky to take a guy like Brock Purdy too high in the event that he doesn't work out. Your rear end's going to be on the line. You're probably going to get fired because people are going to go, well, why'd you take him up there in the first place? Because the chances of him failing, given what his physical traits were much greater than, say, a guy like Justin Herbert, right? Given everything that Brock Purdy has done in his career right now, this season in particular, right? He had one of the best seasons that we have seen in recent memory in all meaningful metrics this year. I would venture to say if we had a call in, if you opened up the phone lines and asked anyone from people who are working in the league to people who are just walking outside there on the street at Pier 17, and you said, who would you rather have, Justin Herbert or Brock Purdy? They'd be like, Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert. Why is that? Because he's 6'5", he can throw the football a mile. Have you seen how good he looks? Have you seen like all of his upside? He just needs more upside. That's what they would, but you would sit there and you go, but what about Brock's efficiency? What about Brock's tight window throws? What about Brock's timing and accuracy? And what about Brock's scramble ability that he showed? Yeah, but have you seen Justin Herbert? Have you seen how good he looks? And you know what? And I'm not disparaging Justin Herbert because he's a fantastic player who's probably going to go off this year. He's probably going to absolutely go off with Coach Harbaugh. But at the end of the day, right? When I talked about this when I was up there just a couple weeks ago, we judge quarterbacks fairly or unfairly by winning. So if he wins and he beats the greatest quarterback of our time, quote unquote, in this Super Bowl, how much are we going to twist ourselves up to try and discredit what he does? Or are we going to just say, hey, you know what? It's about efficiency and it's about winning football games. I think I know where that conversation is going to go, and it's unfortunate.
There's a couple of different pieces to this that I think are interesting. So one of them is, to the point Lewis just made, the way I've always phrased it is, general managers, and I think coaches in the NFL too, with a lot of decisions they make in games, they always make the decision, or frequently make the decision that will be easier to explain if it fails. Basically, the one less likely to get me fired if it fails. That's why they are so averse to risk. The second piece, though, I think there is one way in which the answer to that is yes. I think one of the things we are going to see more and more of is that teams are going to take quarterbacks who have played a lot in college.
Sure. Yeah.
The whole thing about taking guys who have started for one season. Look, Anthony Richardson only had, I think, 12 starts in college. Mitchell Trubisky had 13, I think. Mark Sanchez started one season. I think a guy like Brock Purdy, who was Trey Lance barely played in college.
Right.
Part of that wasn't his fault. That, I think, that is one area, Jeff, where I think teams will lean towards looking at experience when they're drafting quarterbacks.
I think that's the whole Bill Parcells conversation from many years ago, where he was,
30 starts.
Yeah, 30 starts. How successful were they in these 30 starts, and making sure that matters. But this conversation has frustrated me throughout the season about you want to discredit a guy because of where he was drafted, right? He's Mr. Irrelevant. But look at the final 4 QBs, right? You have Goff, who's a retread, right? Nobody wanted Lamar as the last pick of the first round, and Mahomes sat a year before he played, right? So behind Alex Smith. But because of what Purdy's done, we want to limit. If he was a first-round pick, you can't tell me that this guy would not have been more in the MVP conversation the entirety of the season because of what he had done, the numbers he was putting up. Oh, well, watch the tape. Okay, watch the tape. Watch the tape of every quarterback. Do you get the benefits sometimes? Do you get the? But at the end of the day, all the guy has done was put the 49ers in positions to win. And if you look at Shanahan's offense, Shanahan's offense makes everybody look good. Okay, well, let's take this. They were over when they were down by 7 or more in the fourth quarter. He puts a drive together against Green Bay and wins it. They're down to Detroit by 17 or whatever it was. He brings this team back and gets the win. He's doing things in the offense that no one else has done. So why can't we give credit to the kid and go, he's freaking balled this season, and it doesn't have to be a legacy dictator, but he puts these together and you put them in a different conversation.
Yeah, we can give all that credit, but to this question, right, about will it change the way teams evaluate quarterbacks in the draft? No, because you don't have to take a player with Brock Purdy's intangibles and his physical profile in the first round. You don't have to because you can get him in the later rounds. Now, it may be that this underlines for teams the importance of, hey, make sure you get a guy in the 4th, 5th, 6th round just in case, right? But teams are already doing that. You already see on day 3, you see quarterbacks go in those rounds, and that's in fact what happened with Purdy. But yeah, I think it's the ultimate example of look, the 49ers went all in to draft Trey Lance number 3, and it didn't work out. But fortunately for them, they covered their bases with a very late round pick that turned out to be better, I think, than they or anybody else could have possibly expected. So it may just underline the importance of cover your bases in the later rounds and don't underrate college football experience and its value. But I do not think, as to Lewis's point, it is not going to make a guy that looks like Brock Purdy go ahead of a guy that looks like Justin Herbert.
Quick final word, Lewis, go.
You know what, though? Here's the thing, and I wish we had more time to talk about this, and that is like last year's debate, right, between C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. All right? Yeah. Because C.J. Stroud, I saw them both play. I saw them both throw up close and personal. And from a body type perspective, C.J. Stroud looked like the prototype NFL quarterback. Bryce Young did not. But still, you had most people arguing me down saying, how could you say that C.J. Stroud is better than Bryce Young? Because then the goalpost was moved over here. Well, you know what? C.J. had all those weapons at Ohio State. I said, but wait a minute. I thought he looks the part. He looks much more the part than Bryce Young, but he had all those weapons, and Ohio State quarterbacks, they're no good. It's an interesting discussion, man.